Welcome, everybody, to Congregation L'Dor Va-Dor's Parson to Parson Controversial Issues Forum. It is March 21st, 2022, and tonight we're going to be speaking about Ukraine. And we stand with you, the whole community, the whole country of Ukraine. Thank you. Take it away, Rabbi and Fritz Aufdencamp.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you for making this possible. And I thank everyone for joining us. Parson to Parson was a name of a radio program that my father conducted for decades, in which he, as a rabbi, invited clergy of different faiths to join him in interfaith discussion. The hope was that people would see clergy getting along and sharing views, not always agreeing, but disagreeing agreeably, and not feeling like you can't get along with someone just because you have an idea that's different. And so we here enjoy diversity of beliefs, sharing our views, and the goal is perhaps by each of us participating, we may alter our views somewhat based on what we've heard from others. I don't know of anyone who has a monopoly on truth. I don't know of anyone who can't learn from listening to others. And so the goal is for everyone to listen to other views and to perhaps learn something and not give up all of their views, but maybe change some of them or renounce some and learn from others. So it's a great pleasure for me to have Pastor Fritz Aufdencamp on with us to engage in this dialogue in the future. We will invite guests. Today, we're going to discuss, as Sharon mentioned, Ukraine and anything else that anyone would like to bring up. And so, Pastor Fritz, I'll turn it over to you to kick off the discussion and share some thoughts with us.
I'm not sure how you make this a controversial issue.
Well, this isn't controversial issues. Today's not controversial. That's a different program. This is not controversial.
and this is so important because I think all of us simply need a therapy session, a place where we can vent what's going on inside of us, because it's so hard to contain, because we feel so helpless in many respects to do anything. I'm kind of an optimistic guy, and I hope that somehow we move from bullets to finances. I hope our future wars are fought with finances and not with bullets. But I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens during this experience with Putin. Let's see how much a financial stranglehold will have an effect on him, or will it cause him to be more crazy? That's always the risk that we're taking. But it's just mind-boggling. And some of my friends said, they just don't want to watch TV. They just can't handle it. It's so intense, and but at the same time, this is if anything's gonna. I heard the word stalemate today for the first time on the news, that we're at a stalemate to some degree in Ukraine. And I'm hoping the technology, the internet, and the social media and so forth it's going to play a much more different role than it has in former situations, because it is when Vietnam finally made the evening news, the truth of Vietnam, it changed things. And I mentioned earlier about how I think the mothers in Russia, when they start bringing their sons home in body bags, that somehow, I don't know how Putin will continue to hide what's going on, but he will do his darndest, that's for sure. You know, they've got two armies, I think, in Russia. They've got the army that's fighting the Ukrainians, and they've got the army that's protecting Putin, because dictators are very fearful of their own people. That's where the fear really is for them. But right now, I really don't know how much the Russians know about what's truly going on. It appears that they know very little, and Putin is doing his very best to keep that going. But I don't know how long he can continue that.
To me, it seems clear that Russia will lose this war.
I think you're right, Harry. I do. I think you're right.
The only question is how much carnage, how much damage, how many lives will be destroyed, taken before he loses. It's clear that he's going to lose the war. It's similar to with Nazi Germany, when there was a point in 45, late 44, where we knew the Nazis were going to lose. The only question was how many lives would be lost before that happened, because Hitler wasn't going to give up. Putin is a madman. He's apparently not the type to give up. And if he does, he knows he's going to face serious repercussions, execution, or he'll be put to death, or somebody's assassinating him. He's fighting for his life because he's made so many decisions that were fateful, that shows that either he's going to go for broke or he's not going to survive, that he feels like there's no option. So he's going to keep fighting to the bitter end. And he will face a bitter end, economically, militarily, diplomatically. He's going to meet his end. The problem is that there's so many people dying and suffering in the meantime. I think the rest of the world needs to step up all of the efforts that they're doing to put the squeeze on him so that his demise will come sooner rather than later. Regarding the Russian population, we tend to think that the Russians are all indoctrinated dupes and they don't know what they're doing and everybody's in the dark. It's not quite like that. I believe about 15,000 people have been arrested protesting against the Putin regime. These are extremely brave people, because if you're arrested by Putin, you don't know what's going to happen. So that means that there's a lot more people than 15,000 who are aware of what's going on. It's very similar here in the United States. You had an attempted takeover of our government. There's some people who are completely brainwashed and deluded, and they think that it's a hoax or it didn't really happen. They buy into Trump and the far right's version of events, or their perversion of events. There's other people who have their doubts, and there's many people who know what really happened. The same thing's true in Russia. There's a lot of people who are just willing dupes. They don't ask questions. They don't want to know. They just hear a strong man saying Russia's the best, and they just blindly follow. A lot of other people know that it's not true, and a fair amount of people are in between. But what we do know is this from the news accounts, that more and more people are starting to wake up. And you're right, Fritz, Putin can't hide the truth from all these people as it becomes blazingly obvious what's going on. The soldiers are coming back with horrific reports, and the claims that they would be greeted with open arms just didn't happen. And so it's just inevitable that everybody will find out the truth, just like they did in Nazi Germany. It's just a matter of how many people are going to die in the meantime. I believe one of the effective ways of fighting back is by public opinion throughout the world. And the people of Russia, when they see that their nation is a pariah, when they hear more and more from around the world that everybody's against them, it's going to make them put pressure on Putin one way or the other. And so I think that rallies and gatherings of support, sending money, I think these are all really, really important things. Some of the most important changes in the world came about by rallies and demonstrations. The end of apartheid, the end of communism, the civil rights movement, the women's rights, the environmental movement. We need to step up the rallies and demonstrations and get a momentum going so that all over the world, people are rallying and declaring the end and demanding the end of the Putin regime.
I heard a discussion the other day about, well, why didn't Putin do this when Trump was in office, when he has a buddy at the head of our country? And the commentator said, well, Putin was doing okay then because NATO was slowly being dismantled by Trump's approach to NATO. But when Trump was gone and Biden is reestablishing NATO, then Putin knew he had to try some other way of getting what he wanted.
Yeah, right. He was doing fine before. NATO was in the verge of collapse.
Yep.
Trump was putting the squeeze on Zelensky, telling Zelensky that he wasn't going to support him unless he got dirt on Biden. He was cozying up with Putin. So Putin was getting what he wanted. He was probably getting ready to do his dirty work without having maybe even to fire a shot. He probably thought he'd get world's support and Trump's support. But yeah, when Trump left office, and Putin really wanted him to stay in office in a bad way. When he didn't make it, I guess Putin figured he had to try something a little more proactive.
Yeah.
The Biden response, people are going to debate this for a long time. There's no easy answers to this. I think he should be doing a lot more. I mean, he's doing a lot, but all the humanitarian in the world is just a Band-Aid if you're not going to help the Ukrainians defend themselves. And Biden's helping them defend themselves to some extent. I don't think he's doing nearly enough. And I really find it offensive when people put it in terms of, well, what's in America's self-interest? That's what we have to be concerned about. What's in our self-interest? I really find that offensive.
Yes.
To suggest that people could be dying and others are fighting for democracy and the innocent are being slaughtered, and we shouldn't do anything unless it's in our self-interest. That's just despicable language, because you could easily say, well, it's in our self-interest to do nothing, because now we're jeopardizing our oil supply. And so let's just do nothing. That we do not, and we must not operate merely out of self-interest. That is
Trump kept saying that Europe should take care of their own problems. Don't get us involved in it.
Yeah.
Trump's approach.
Well, that's the whole philosophy of America First. America First, which is his motto, was the policy of fascists who wanted the US to stay out of World War II and just said, we should just take care of ourselves and just look after ourselves. That's a really odious philosophy. I hear people say it. I hear it in the Biden regime also. I hear it in Democrats and Republicans. I just hope that the religious community can convince our leaders and world leaders that that is one factor in determining foreign policy. Our self-interest. It's not the only one, and it never should be. Otherwise, we're not a moral country, and we can't claim to be the leaders of the free world if we're only looking out for our own self-interest and not the interests of people throughout the world. Why don't we open it up to everybody else? Let's hear from other people what you think.
Go ahead,
Who wants to weigh in on this?
Stan does. Go ahead.
Good evening. I was just looking at the map, and if you look at the map of Russia and what used to be the Soviet Union, I think that's what you're really dealing with this KGB guy, Vladimir Putin. Because if you look at the Baltic group, you got Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Moldova surrounding Ukraine and Belarus. And then you come around to the Black Sea group, which is Georgia and Armenia. And then you come around to the Caspian group, which are all the Stan groups, Turkestan, Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and there's 4 or 5 of them. I think that's what he wants to do, is reestablish the Soviet Union. If he can take Ukraine, which may be the best defender of their national interest, the other countries are just laydowns. There's no way that Latvia or Lithuania or Moldova or any of those small countries are going to stand up to Putin. It just can't happen. They'll collapse in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think the United States is not paying attention to the map. And furthermore, I read Sunday, the United States agreed to send just a couple of days ago, Patriot defense missiles to Saudi Arabia. Why they do that? Hello? It's a 3-word word, oil. But why don't they send Patriot missiles to Ukraine and make the Iron Dome just as effective as it is for Israel? I don't understand that. They claim it's going to start World War III. Well, let it start World War III and let them blow up the Soviet Union. That's all. Anything?
What use is Ukraine once it's been totally destroyed? What use is
Well,
Ukraine?
it's pretty much there now.
Yes.
Well, Stanley, you raised a lot of very, very good points. What our country does because of our addiction to oil is just shameful. Our foreign policy, like I said, it's based on self-interest, and we're dependent on oil. We're addicted. We prostitute ourselves to these oligarchs, and we dance chic to chic with them because they think they have us over a barrel. And they're promising for us an Orwellian future by our slavish addiction to oil. And it's obvious if we attempt to learn anything from history that we have to overcome this addiction and come up with alternative energy and also conservation. You know, during World War II, people conserved, they sacrificed. And one of the things they rationed was oil. And they also rationed food to send overseas. They made sacrifices. Where is it that Europe and America, the leaders, are telling their people, we're going to have to make sacrifices. We're addicted to oil. We need to conserve, use less until the time comes when we have alternatives, and we're going to invest in alternatives so that these oligarchs will have no one to sell to because nobody needs their oil. And then we'll have the technology and we'll export that technology and we'll make the money instead of sending all of our wealth over to these horrible regimes who do terrible things to us. And you're 100% correct, Stanley. It's oil that makes us do very, very shameful things. As far as the Iron Dome, sure, it would be nice if Ukraine had it, but that technology is extremely technical, and also it requires years and years of infrastructure to construct it. Unfortunately, we can't come up with an Iron Dome type of thing today, but there are things short of it that we could do to help Ukraine defend itself, and also weapons that we could be sending over. And I'm tired of Putin scaring people with threats of this and that. I think you got to take him out, because I think there's another thing that we have clearly shown, that when you allow a madman to get their hands on nuclear weapons, then we're just playing Russian roulette, if you'll pardon the expression, with our future, because anything could trigger his decision to use that. The world community should not allow rogue regimes to have these weapons. And if any of them acquire them, they should be pariahs and they should be shunned. Instead, we lavished praise on Putin and bought his oil and propped up his economy. This should teach us that we cannot do that anymore.
I was talking earlier about how long will our country remain focused on caring for Ukraine? How long will we be able to withstand watching this on TV day after day? Will we be able to handle it and be motivated to continue doing whatever we can to help this problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? I hear what you're saying about watching these things on TV. You watch every night and you're just sickened, and you feel, like you say, very helpless about all the suffering that's going on. On the other hand, you think, if they're enduring all of this and they have to live it, I mean, I can't even know about it. I should just be oblivious to it. I can't even watch it because it bothers me. What about all these people who are suffering? You know, so it's a very difficult situation. And I feel that it's really important that everybody do something. You know, the Jewish sages say that it's not up to us to stop all the problems and to cure all the world's problems, but we are not at liberty to defer from doing what we can. And so each one of us should do something. And if everybody did, it would be a very, very different world.
Hopefully our journalists will continue doing what they're doing to make us aware of what's happening every day.
Yeah, I think they're doing a good job, and some of them are risking their lives. But I think this also brings up another issue, and that is the assault upon the truth, and the difficulty of trying to find out what's really going on. But there's news outlets that are just purveying all types of lies and falsehood And in the old days, it wasn't like that. The news was more accurate. Now it's a lot more partisan. And I think we need to really reassess what we're subjecting ourselves to in these news outlets. And there's a real need to challenge lies. And I'll just give you a very minor example. So I'm part of a celebration called All People's Day. So All People's Day, we just celebrated. It was really
weekend, yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. We have cultures and different cultures, different languages, exhibits and booths and music. It's a beautiful thing. But I was part of the organizing committee, and they said, this year, I think we should have a petting zoo. I think we should promote kindness to animals. So I said, hey, I think it's a great idea. Let's do that. That sounds good. And then I said, and what we might want to also do, since we're promoting kindness to animals, we might want to consider not serving any meat, having the whole thing vegetarian. One of the people there was very, very outraged, said, how dare you suggest that there's a connection between eating meat and morality and kindness to animals? That's a very arrogant thing to say. So then I just said, I don't know, maybe it's me, but I don't think it makes sense to be petting animals in one booth and eating them in the next. I think there's a contradiction. Anyway, one of the people on the organizing committee got up and walked out when I said that. She was outraged. And then she had some horrible things to say about me, and somebody else did as well. That was true. What I said was rather abrasive, but walking out, this is cancel culture. People are hearing something that they don't want to hear and they leave, or they refuse to listen to another point of view. And this cancel culture, it's going on the right and on the left, and it also goes on in religious circles. This group isn't going to listen to this religion. The left wing isn't going to listen to this about Israel and Islam. The right wing's not going to listen to this. This cancel culture, this inability to discuss things is very, very harmful, and it sets us up in opposing camps. And that's why I like what we're doing here. And I seek out people who have different points of view. Pastor Aufdencamp and I, we agree on most things. I'm still trying to find something we disagree on. I'm sure we will. But the thing is that I'm seeking out people, religious leaders who disagree. And it's amazing to me, amazing that when they do, they don't want to come and share views. If an Orthodox rabbi ever invited me to their synagogue to share my views, you couldn't stop me. I could be on my deathbed. I would find a way to get there or to Zoom in. You could not stop me from having an audience, a chance to talk to the Orthodox. But have them talk to me, not interested. The fundamentalist Christians, they're welcome to join us. If any are listening now, come on out and tell us where we went wrong. Tell us how, because we're rejecting Jesus, we're heading downstairs. Come and tell us. We want to know. But
I'm still trying to get my Lutheran officials to interact with me, even to discuss the subject, but they remain silent. They will talk about anything else, but they will not talk about issues that really matter.
It's cancel culture. They have no defense to what you're saying. They know what you're saying is accurate, and so they just avoid the whole thing. And it's like the person that just walked out when I was speaking, just walked out. I don't want to hear about it. And this whole idea that, well, I'm not going to talk to you is very harmful. I have a friend who's a Republican, and he and I have gone at it quite a few times. Sometimes at L'Dor Va-Dor, the people get a little upset because it's kind of abrasive, but we need to do more of that. And we've had Republicans on here and conservatives on here and fundamentalists and Orthodox on here, and we're going to keep doing that as much as we can. And if you know anybody out there who knows anybody who disagrees with what we're saying, please let them know that they are welcome to join us.
I did not attend People's Day, but to your credit, what I heard was it perhaps was the best one they've ever had.
It was truly extraordinary. I had the privilege of performing with Cantor Garrett, who I don't know if you're aware of this, but life couldn't exist on Earth because we have a wobble. but the moon kind of stabilizes us. And if it wasn't for the moon, we couldn't exist. I'm kind of like that with Cantor Garrett. I'm kind of like out there, and I'm not sure what key to sing in and stuff. Cantor Garrett plays the guitar and she tells me the right key and she stabilizes me. So I was singing with her. Then Cantor Garrett was doing her thing. We had Cecilia St. James. We had Dr. Phil Dukes. We had Dr. Julia Sana. We had some of the leading voices for peace and justice in this community. It was really a sight to behold. I don't think that anyone made it their business to record the whole thing, unfortunately. But what I did, I sent out an email today and I said, what a beautiful thing to see all these voices for peace and justice. And I called on all the organizers to join me in a concert for Ukraine. I said, let's get all these voices together. Let's do a concert for Ukraine in which we raise our voice and then we'll raise funds and awareness. And I just sent it out today. And I will let you know of the response, because I've been hearing from a lot of people that they want to have a concert and a fundraiser in which not only are we going to raise money, but also we'll be inspired with beautiful music and we'll be inspired by the fight for freedom and not just be brought down by all the horrific suffering, but it's amazing to see around the world all the people coming forward to help, especially these surrounding countries that are allowing hundreds of thousands of people to come into their country and absorbing them and greeting them with sandwiches and with food and with shelter. The outpouring of love and support from around the world is every bit as inspiring and more than the harsh realities of Putin and his thugs.
How many of these refugees are going to be able to make it to this country?
I don't know, but there is an effort in Palm Beach County to bring some people in and absorb them. Of course, the solution is not to have everybody flee Ukraine. The solution is to end the fighting right away and get these people back to their homes. I mean, leaving your country is a really horrible thing. And also the surrounding countries don't have the resources to absorb all these people. But for now we have to welcome them, and then hopefully they can return. I saw something that to me was just tragic. You might have seen it on TV also. It was this guy looked like he was in his 20s, and he was with his dog in the middle of the street, and the dog didn't want to leave him, and he had to go, and he was lying down with his dog trying to comfort the dog. It's like one of the most tragic things. I mean, there's a lot of horrible things going on over there, but if you think how people are close to their pets, then you think about what would happen if everybody just had to leave their homes were being bombed out, and you just had to flee. I mean, it's really horrible. And then we hear a lot about the women and the children, which is really horrific what's happening to them. But what about the men? Imagine a person who has no military training whatsoever and who is not interested in fighting. And all of a sudden he's forced to take a gun and to have to kill people and to be shot out and maybe horribly wounded or injured, and trying to figure out how to even operate these weapons. What's going on there, the human tragedy to women, to children, to men, to the elderly, just to everybody, to the animals there, it's horrible. And that's why it's really imperative that we really put the pressure on a world community to fight and oppose Putin and all of those who prop him up. Anybody else? Anybody want to share some thoughts? Go ahead, Sharon.
I know that Putin was, Biden was going to Europe today, right? Right.
Yeah.
So he's visiting Poland. I think he was going to Poland, right?
Yeah.
What is his intentions? What is he going to try to do there?
Well, it seems to me that he's trying to shore up NATO, shore up our allies, get as much support as possible to do what we can to help Ukraine, short of sending in any of our soldiers in there, and short of provoking what he keeps saying is World War III. So he's walking a tightrope, and he's trying to get as much support as he can from these other countries without crossing some line that he's drawn. And that's his goal. And but you know, he's supposed to be Mr. Compassionate. Biden was supposed to be the guy, oh, he has been through such tragedy, he knows how to feel. I haven't really seen from him a recognition of just how tragic and horrific this is. I'm not sure why that is, because compared to the other things that are going on, this is like the worst catastrophe that's ever happened, certainly in his presidency. And I also have to believe this, we saw a lot of carnage in Afghanistan, in Syria, Iraq. Those countries were all, the people were very different than us. They were a different ethnic group. And I think we were willing to put up with a lot more violence and terror and death and destruction.
We weren't as
in these
touched
countries.
as we're touched by these people, perhaps.
Yeah, in these other countries, I think we're willing to put up with more and not get viscerally involved. Ukraine is kind of on the border. I mean, Ukraine, a lot of people think, well, they're kind of like Russia, and they're kind of like, oh, these are the bad guys. We don't really identify, but they're also like kind of like part of Europe. The people of Ukraine look a lot more like we do than the people of Syria. And I think that's part of why they're provoking this response. And I also strongly believe that Putin wasn't so far off in thinking that he could advance into Ukraine and take it over. I don't think anybody, certainly the generals that we've heard from in America, never expected Zelensky to step forward and to act so heroically and the people of Ukraine to stand up. Before all this happened, Putin could have been justified in thinking that he could get away with this vicious, violent takeover, and he could have thought that. That's why Trump said that this was a brilliant move. I mean, it seemed that way to a lot of people. People didn't expect Zelensky to step forward and to be such a powerful leader like a Churchill. And now that he's fighting back, people are rallying behind him. But imagine if this was happening like in England or in France or a country like that, and all these things were happening, people would be outraged. And if the whiter the people are, the more outraged they are. I've heard some people, including some Jews, and they're not many. I've heard them say that Ukraine, these people, they were butchering Jews. They were collaborating with the Nazis. They were doing horrible things to us. Why do you feel so sorry for them? And I said, well, these people weren't alive then. What are you talking about? There's nobody who is suffering now who was even alive in those days. And some people are just such racists that it's like, well, who cares? It was their fathers or their grandfathers or whatever. Well, I care. I mean, some of the things that you're hearing are just so ridiculous. But it is true that historically, Ukraine collaborated to a very, very large extent. And the memorial at Babi-Yar, where so many thousands of people were mercilessly murdered, that wasn't done by Nazis. That was done mostly by Ukrainians.
I think less than 2% are Jewish in Ukraine.
Yeah, but it wasn't like that before. There's a very, very large Jewish population in Ukraine. And one of the reasons why so many Jews were killed in such a high percentage was because the Ukrainians gleefully participated in exterminating the Jews and appropriating their property. A lot of it has to do with money. It's like, well, I get to take their house, their property, their possessions, all that stuff. It sounds good to me. And so there's a very high extent of collaboration there and in Poland. And sadly, in a lot of the countries that were Christian, a lot of the Christian nations seem to readily accept Hitler's philosophy that the Jews deserve to be exterminated because they were going to be burning in hell anyway. So what's the difference? Might as well expedite their departure and make it happen now. And that's part of the reason I know, Pastor Fritz, that you also have serious concerns about the teachings of Christianity. And I have serious concerns about the teaching of Judaism, because the reason why the Christians got this concept that God's going to send them to heaven and everybody else is going somewhere else is because of the chosen people concept that they co-opted from the Jewish people, about the Jewish people being chosen. Now, the Jewish people were chosen in the Torah mostly to serve, mostly to be a light, mostly by example. But you also have in the Torah the Jewish people being chosen to occupy the promised land, and other people that got in their way were chosen to be exterminated. So this whole concept of God ordering people to be killed in order for God's chosen to advance, this concept goes right back to the Torah. That's why Fritz and I have kind of teamed up. It's like a tag team. We've teamed up, where I say these concepts in the Torah should not be accepted at face value. They should be rejected. And Fritz is saying the same thing about the teachings of the Christians.
I got much more ammunition than you have.
Yeah, you do have a lot of ammunition, but we have responsibility because we launched the concept.
We learned it from you. We learned it from you.
Yeah, that's true. But it metastasized. I think it metastasized in Christianity and Islam. I'm still waiting for a Muslim to come on and repudiate the teachings of Islam. They won't do it, because if they do, they'll be executed. Right now, if you're Muslim and you come on with us and you have a Muslim counterpart and they're saying what we're saying, the Quran, it's kind of violent, it's teaching to kill the non-believers. They won't be able to get life insurance. their life expectancy is going to be very short, because there's no room yet in Islam for that type of thinking, and that is extremely dangerous. And that, Fritz, you and I have to work on that one, because we got to find a counterpart in the Islamic world who's going to come on and speak like this.
Well, when people, they say, well, Fritz, so talk about the Muslims. Now, forget about the Christians. Talk about the Muslims. They're the ones that are really evil. Well, maybe they can learn. If we can make some changes in our own theology, perhaps they can learn from us how you can live in a more peaceful way without this rhetoric.
Well, Fritz, I think there was a rabbi who lived a couple of thousand years ago who said, "Let he whose Bible is without sin cast the first stone."
Yes. Yes.
And anybody else want to share some thoughts with us? Go ahead, Stan.
Unmute. I'm going to unmute you, Stan. Go ahead.
Well, I have one more thought.
Yes.
So Poland has absorbed 3+ million Ukrainians. Now, do you think that this Putin guy, who is rotten to the core, when he gets cornered, wouldn't be adverse to bombing over in Poland to take out those Ukrainians? And even though Poland wasn't part of the Soviet Union, it was a part of the Soviet empire, so to speak. Do you think he'd be adverse to moving into Poland? It's a big fish.
Yeah, I don't think he would move into Poland, because his army is already.
It's already stretched to the limit.
He's done. His army is actually losing in Ukraine. What the scary thing is, what he would do is use chemical weapons or nuclear weapons in Poland, in Ukraine, even towards the United States. I mean, he's got so many nuclear weapons. The guy's a madman, and he's probably figuring, I got all these weapons, might as well use them if the time comes. If it looks like I'm not going to make it, might as well take some people down with me. That's the scary thing.
Well, those NATO people better be prepared for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to team up with Israel to get an Iron Dome against all of these crazy weapons that they have. We really need to work on defending ourselves from these crazy people.
I was listening to the head of the energy department. I can't even think of his name. A little guy, white hair, on a show the other night, and he said it's for an Iron Dome to protect the United States is almost a myth at this point in time, because it's so difficult to come up with something like that. Such a long range Iron Dome.
Yeah. Well, Israel's Iron Dome can keep out like 90% of the stuff coming in, but when you're dealing with nuclear weapons.
Yeah, he also commented how many they could be sending over and how many be able to stop, Yeah,
they can send over thousands. I mean, when you're dealing with nuclear weapons, all you need is like one. But even if 10 get through, you're done.
But what about the blowback? If he would use nuclear in Europe, the blowback of the radiation fallout is not. Who wants it anywhere in Europe?
He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
It's hard to imagine that, but you may be right.
Yeah, he's not playing with a full deck. He's not in his right mind, and he does not really care. He is a vicious maniac, and if he thought that he was going to lose, then he'll do something desperate to stop that from happening. Most likely, he's not the type that's just going to lose gracefully and say, "Okay, made a mistake."
He wasn't going to do that either. He ended up killing himself, or suicide. I mean, he was not going to face up to what had happened.
Yeah, that's the scary thing. Anybody else? Surely Fritz and I said something that somebody disagrees with. I mean, we said a lot of controversial stuff. Somebody's got to take issue with something I said.
I do.
I'd like to show the video now.
Go ahead.
All
Good.
right.
All right, let's see the video.
All right, so I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'm going to, oh, what is that? Oh, somebody's got something on there. Okay, got it. Okay, got it. I am going to now show the video.
Now we dream of times we had before. We are all tired, we can't take no more. And you don't care for hollow comfort, do you? We're sick of this pandemic, disasters, war, it's lunatic. Too crushed to feel the joy of hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Faith isn't hard when life is well. It's brittle when you're facing hell, and I can't always be light-hearted for you. But know that I am at your side, more as a shoulder than a guide, even though we can't voice a hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. With confidence all but destroyed, I fling a prayer into the void to recreate when happiness flowed through you. But despite the news we hear tonight, and if tomorrow brings no light, I'll hold on to the hope of hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Thanks a lot, Sharon. That was really great video, beautiful song. I've written my own lyrics to Hallelujah for Ukraine as well, which I'll probably share on Friday. But that's a beautiful song.
Barry, I think for one of these sessions, you should have a representative of the religious community in Russia to talk with us
Yeah, the Russian Orthodox Church. They
about Putin's understanding of Christianity.
yeah, they're not gonna join us, but that's a good idea. I'll invite them anyway, just in case. But yeah, Putin has co-opted the Russian Orthodox Church to spread his lies. And if you want to spread lies to people, the best way is to co-opt religion, because religion is used to teaching people to believe on faith, not by evidence. And so once you soften up their minds in that way, you can get them to believe anything. And we tend to underestimate what is going on when people get brainwashed. We think Putin alone is able to convince people that black is white. And it's not just Putin. It's a religious community. It's a cultural thing. There's a lot of forces going on that cause people to believe nonsense. And we as a species need to wake up to this, because there's a lot of people believing nonsense and not believing in science. In Judaism, our goals are summed up in two words: emet, tzedek. Emet means truth, tzedek means righteousness. You can't have one without the other. You cannot have righteousness if you don't know the truth, because there's a lot of people think they're doing righteous acts that are pure evil because they're not connected with the truth. So we tend to underestimate truth. We say, well, as long as they have faith, that's the important thing. Sure, as long as you have faith, that's important. Faith is overrated. If your faith is based on nonsense and it's not grounded in evidence and reality, then you're dangerous. And we need to start recognizing the fact that rational faith is necessary and irrational faith is all right. Unless anybody has anything else to share, I think we might call it a day with that. It was a very good.
I have a question for Barry.
Go ahead.
Question for Barry. This is very important. Okay. Do you still have a team in the NCAA tournament?
No, actually, my son Brandon is really into it. He has a team and he's doing well. I'm not into the March Madness though. I just watch with him once in a while.
Sure you would be.
I coach basketball and I play basketball, but I'm not a very good spectator. But my son Brandon's doing well.
I just love the enthusiasm of college tournament play.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know if you're aware of this, but basketball happens to be a Jewish sport.
No, I'm not. What do you mean? How could that be?
You're a great straight man. Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, you can't play basketball without a minyan. A minyan is you need 10 people in order to make a prayer meeting official for God to listen. So you can't play basketball without a minyan. And then also, this is true, the diameter or the circumference of the rim is 18 inches in diameter, and 18 means life in Hebrew. It's a holy number. Now also in basketball, you have 3 different positions that summarize the role of the Jewish people.
Oh boy.
You have the guard, and we're commissioned to guard and protect the oppressed. You have the forward, and we're supposed to help mankind to move forward. Then you got the center, and we're supposed to put kindness and good deeds and love at the center. So you have all these different positions in basketball that symbolize.
I can't argue with that.
Well, you could say the same about every religion, though. Every religion should guard and protect the oppressed, help humanity move forward, and place love and kindness at the center. So you could say it's a religious sport as well.
I'll tell you, when I played basketball, something has changed from when I grew up, because when I was a kid playing basketball, whoever lost got the ball out first for the next game. But in today's generation, if you win, you're the first ones to get the ball. I mean, it's just the reverse of how we were taught to be kind.
Yes, it's winners out. Yeah, they play by winners out. Yeah, right. Right. That's how it is right now. It's winners out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the thrill of coaching Brandon, and he's 17 now. When I was in the younger days, you know, I would have to give them a chance. I couldn't play my best. Nowadays, they put up with me, and these guys are really good. It's really,
Oh my
it's
goodness.
really fun to be out there watching them and playing with them. And right today, our team now is undefeated so far this year, and we got interrupted by the spring break. We're having a really, really good season, and I'm having a great time
Good.
coaching. It's a lot of fun.
It's a very positive note. That's good, Barry.
There you go. All right, thank you everybody for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the future. We are going to be at a really cool place. We're going to be at, we got an outdoor service coming up in the park, which is always fun. We're doing stuff for Passover. April 29, we're going to be at Mariposa, which is Spanish for butterflies, a senior residential facility, and it's at a good location for most of our folks. It's out on, I think it's around Hypoluxo and
Lions.
Lions. It's a really nice location. And we hope to get a big crowd out there for our opening day there. And we got a lot of good stuff coming up. And we're now emerging out of this pandemic. And I think we're going to come back bigger and stronger and better than before, armed with new technology, ready to go. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And Fritz, I hope to do a lot of events with you, and we'll be doing them in person fairly soon. We're going to be in person with a live audience. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I thank you very much for joining us tonight.
It was fun. It was fun.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.